A man goes on a stabbing rampage in London, killing a woman and leaving 5 people injured. While police suggest the perpetrator could have mental problems, social media users express their concerns of the attack's links to terror. And the deadly incident comes just one day after the announcement that Metropolitan Police will increase street patrols in London with heavily armed units amid fears of terrorism. From Moscow to the world, this is RT International. My name's Ewan O'Neill. Good to have your company. We begin with breaking news on the programme. A knife-wielding man has attacked pedestrians at Russell Square in central London, killing 1 woman and injuring 5 others. We spoke to a witness of the incident.
I just came out for a cigarette. There was people laying on the ground and people standing round. And a guy with a motorbike helmet balanced on his head, just walking up and down. And then the police car and an ambulance came, and that was it. I thought it'd been a motorbike accident or somebody had been knocked over, or had no idea that anyone had been stabbed.
Well, let's just take a look at where the stabbing actually occurred, Russell Square. Now, it is close to the popular tourist attraction, the British Museum. There's also a number of hotels, and the University of London's main building is located nearby. Let's cross live now to Polly Boyka in London, who's been following the story for a number of hours, from the early hours indeed. Polly, just bring it together for us. What do we know at this stage about what occurred?
Well, look, I've just been talking to the man that actually called the police last night. He was cycling past on this street, just past where those police officers are standing, and he saw a number of people lying on the ground in shock, having just been stabbed. And he said that the woman that tragically lost her life in the attack, she had been stabbed in the back. They told him that a man was running down the street on a rampage with a knife in front of his face, just stabbing anyone he could see. Now, that 19-year-old man, we know he's 19, he was tasered by police moments after the attack. He was then in hospital under armed guard. He's now left hospital, and he is in a police station in London under arrest on suspicion of murder. Now, that is important. Take a listen to what the police said about the attack a little bit earlier on today.
A 19-year-old man was arrested shortly after 10:39 p.m. and is currently in police custody at hospital. Early indications suggest that mental health is a significant factor in this case, and that is one major line of inquiry. But of course, at this stage, we should keep an open mind regarding motive.
Now, this issue of mental health has been picked up by people, because earlier on, that statement from the police said that they were also looking into terrorism as a possible motive for this attack. Their latest statement has removed that reference to terrorism. It just says that they think it's a mental health issue, and also they're keeping an open mind about the motive. That is a significant change in the wording, and people on social media have been quick to react to this moving away from the idea of terrorism and sort of making the idea of mental health here the central theme.
Stabbing random people isn't already in itself a proof of mental problems, but does that make these people any less terrorists? No.
Ben knives. Also, of course, it's mental illness. Why else would counter-terrorism be involved?
It's remarkable how quick police chiefs are to make psychiatric diagnoses these days.
Polly, we were showing a map right before we got to you, and you could see, you know, just how central this attack was. It happened right in the centre of London. Just tell us a little bit more about that. Right behind you, lots of traffic, but for a lot of hours there wasn't. It was shut down. The streets were closed, weren't they?
Yeah, it's just sort of returning back to normal here, because London's a huge city and people have got to get to work and go about their daily lives. But this is the very centre of London. It's mostly tourists that are walking down this street with suitcases. It's a tourist shop just across the street selling souvenirs from where this happened. And the man inside, I spoke to him and he said the last time he'd seen this type of security in this area was back in 2005 when the 7/7 bombings happened just around here as well. That is a very raw wound in this area of London, and police were probably looking into the connections between that and what happened today. People here are on edge. Just last week, the main police officer here, the person in charge for policing for London, said that a terror attack in London is still a question of when and not if. Take a listen.
An attack is highly likely. You could say it is a case of when, not if.
Well, the Mayor of London spoke recently and he said that he wants people to remain calm and remain vigilant. Now, that is important. It shows you that people here are still in a severe level of terror threat level. That's been the case for London since 2014. That means an attack is highly likely. So there is an urge of people are urging people to stay vigilant, to talk to the police if they see anything out of the ordinary, which suggests that there is still a high alert and people are on edge about it.
Yeah, we're just waiting to hear more about the perpetrator, aren't we? Of course, I'm sure you'll bring us up to date with that. RT's Polly Boyka, thank you. The attack comes just a day after the Metropolitan Police unveiled the new face of its anti-terror patrol force.
More armed police will be deployed across the British capital in order to deter plotters from carrying out an act of terror.
Fully armed and equipped to deal with any situation that might present itself, these figures will become a familiar sight on London's streets.
We see fairly large numbers at times who are there to show the sorts of numbers we've got available because we remain an unarmed force broadly, even with these extra officers that we're employing.
Some 600 specially trained officers will take to the streets to help keep London safe. They're packing serious firepower, which you might only expect to see on the battlefield. Combat rifles, shotguns and full body armour. Their deployment has been dubbed Operation Hercules. The chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation told us about the challenges officers face while protecting the public.
It will take us about 18 months to 2 years to come up to that sort of number of 600 more armed officers on the streets, because you've got to go through a rigorous process of recruitment. We are struggling to recruit officers because of IPCC interaction with officers. I hope we're getting the message across to the public that we are in heightened times. We are in different scenario than you've seen ever on the streets of London. So they've got to accept the public. If they want us to keep them safe, we're out there, normal uniformed officers, but we're backed up by a much stronger show of teeth. You're wrong if you're right and you're right if you're wrong. So how do you balance up the fact that we are aware of an awful lot of information that we don't give the public because they would be so frightened I don't think they'd leave their houses. You know, it's about that balance of we know things are going on, we know people that shouldn't be are available out on the street, so we want you to be aware, we want you to know that something could happen. I can never say that no one's going to be killed by the sheer nature that a police officer is carrying a gun. What I can say is community relations have never been better on the streets of London, and my colleagues are the highest trained that you will find in Europe.
Well, in the past few days, the UK's top counter-terror officer gave advice on how to behave if terrorists hit London. First, you need to run away as far as possible, rather than ducking where you are. Then hide once you've fled from the attackers. And finally, call the police after reaching safety. We asked John White, journalist and author, what he thinks about the advice.
Of course, if somebody's at large with a knife or a gun or whatever, you try and run away. That's a natural response, so I think that's stating the obvious. But I do think that this kind of advice just points to the desperation and the impotence when it comes to the security service. They know they're dealing with a phenomenon that they cannot, they do not know where it's going to come from, and they have no way of guaranteeing you know, with any degree of surety that they can stop these attacks. They cannot. So they're asking the public, they're basically telling the public, you know, in a very real sense, you're on your own when these attacks occur. What we have to understand is cities like London, Paris, New York, etc., people are pretty resilient. These attacks have taken place in London before. We've had the monstrous attack that took place on 7/7/2005. You know, these cities have already experienced terrorist attacks and random attacks of horrific violence. So people are pretty resilient. Of course, people will be scared, will be vigilant, but I don't think it will stop people going about their daily business to any great extent.
Well, despite London police focusing on the attackers' mental health issues, similarities can be drawn with other recent acts of terror in Europe.